This woman didn't know that the man she chose from the eligible bachelors on the dating game was a rapist and serial killer. Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bucor was born on August 23, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas. After 8 years in Texas, Alcala's family moved to Mexico in 1951. 3 years later, his father abandoned the family in Mexico, so they decided to move to Los Angeles. When Rodney was 17 years old, he joined the Army as a clerk, but he was soon discharged because of a mental breakdown and a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. Rodney's first attempt at murder and the start of his violent killing spree was unsuccessful. In 1968, Rodney Alcala lured 8-year-old Tali Shapiro to his Hollywood apartment. Alcala brutally beat and raped Tali, but fortunately she was saved thanks to a witness who had seen Alcala and Tali together and followed them to Alcala's apartment and reported it to the police. By the time the police arrived, Rodney Alcala had already fled. He moved to New York and used the alias John Berger to enroll in film school at New York University where, ironically enough, he studied under Roman Polanski. The FBI added Alcala to its list of 10 most wanted fugitives in early 1971. A few months later, 2 children attending an arts camp noticed his photo on an FBI poster at the post office. So, Alcala was arrested for the attempted murder and rape of Tali Shapiro and extradited to California. But he was only convicted of assault as Tali's family prevented her from testifying in court. After serving 3 years in prison, he was sentenced to another 2 years for attacking a 13-year-old girl. In 1978, Rodney was hired as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times, and surprisingly, he used his real name. At the same time, he pursued photography, and he used it to lure young girls under the guise of adding their photos to his portfolio. But sadly, many of these girls were never heard from again after meeting Alcala. Between October 1977 and February 1978, 10 young women between the ages of 12 and 28 were raped, tortured, and killed in the hills of Los Angeles. The media dubbed the killer the Hillside Strangler. Because of Rodney's past conviction for sexual assault, California police interviewed him in March 1978 as a potential suspect in the Hillside Strangler killings. But Alcala was cleared of suspicion, and the police didn't realize that while he wasn't involved in the Hillside Strangler murders, he was a serial killer in his own right. In September 1978, Rodney appeared as Bachelor number 1 on the dating game. If the show conducted background checks on its contestants, they would have discovered that Rodney had served 5 years in prison for assaulting 2 young girls. However, even a background check wouldn't have revealed the full extent of his crimes and the numerous lives he had taken.
From Hollywood, the dating capital of the world, it's The Dating Game. Here's the star of our show, your host, Jim Lang.
Hey! Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to The Dating Game. And we'll get right underway. It's time to meet our first 3 eligible bachelors for game number 1. And here they are. Good luck, gentlemen. Well, let's see. Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome. And it's time to meet our young lady for game number 1, and here she is. Here is a young lady with a wealth of experience. She once earned a living massaging feet, but she quit when her boss suggested that she work her way up. Then she taught school in Phoenix, Arizona, and now she's here to educate our 3 bachelors in the art of amour. Welcome, if you will, sensational Cheryl Bradshaw. Hello, Cheryl. Don't sit down yet. Just a minute. Want to make sure everything is straight. You relaxed? You feel okay? All right. You know there are 3 bachelors over there. There'll be 1, 2, and 3. Ask them anything you like to find out more about them, except their name, age, occupation, or income, okay? And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay, and here we go.
Bachelor number 1.
Yes.
What's your best time?
The best time is at night. Nighttime.
Why do you say that?
Because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
I'm a drama teacher, and I'm going to audition each of you for my private class. Bachelor number 1.
You're a dirty old man.
Take it.
Come on, over here.
Oh, honey, we ought to go out and boogie.
Really?
Bachelor number 1. I am serving you for dinner.
Oh.
What are you called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
Later, Bachelor 1. Later.
Welcome back to the dating game, and Cheryl, we have reached the moment of truth, as we call it. You heard from the bachelors. You got some great dramatic presentations, some good answers, but now I'm going to ask you a question. Will that date be bachelor number 1, bachelor number 2, or bachelor number 3? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take 1.
Number 1, bachelor number 1. All right. Well, there they go. However, you did leave one remaining, and this is your date, and I want to tell you something about him, Cheryl. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with the one answer.
As you saw at the beginning of the video, Alcala's use of charm and innuendo won him a date with Cheryl Bradshaw. But after speaking with him face-to-face, Bradshaw felt that Alcala's behavior was odd and decided to decline his date request. She said,
"He was acting really creepy. I turned down his offer. I didn't want to see him again."
If Bradshaw hadn't trusted her instincts that day, she might have become one of Rodney Alcala's many victims. Another bachelor on the show, Jed Mills, says that
Rodney was kind of quiet. I remember him because I told my brother about this one guy who was kind of good-looking but kind of creepy. He was always looking down and not making eye contact.
On June 20th, 1979, 12-year-old Robin Samso disappeared on her way to ballet class. Her friends reported that while they were at Huntington Beach, a stranger approached them and asked to take their photographs, but they declined his request. Robin then left for her ballet class, and somewhere between the beach and her class, she vanished. 12 days later, a park ranger found her animal-ravaged bones in a wooded area. After interviewing Robin's friends, a police sketch artist drew an image of the stranger they described. Rodney Alcala's parole officer recognized the sketch and identified Alcala. With this sketch, Alcala's criminal history, and the discovery of Robin Samso's earrings in Alcala's storage locker in Seattle, the police were confident they had found the killer. Finally, on July 24, 1979, Rodney Alcala was arrested. After his arrest, the police discovered hundreds of photos taken by Alcala in a storage locker in Seattle. Some of these photos were explicit, and the police believed that the individuals in the pictures might be other victims of Alcala. In 2010, the police released many of these photos to the public, hoping to identify the people in them. In 1980, Alcala was convicted of kidnapping and murdering Robin Samso and was sentenced to death. But in 1984, this sentence was overturned because the jury had been informed of Alcala's prior sex crimes, which might have influenced their decision. A second trial in 1986 with a new jury also resulted in a death sentence for Alcala, but this conviction was overturned in 2001. LA Weekly explains that a part of this overturn was because
the second trial judge did not allow a witness to back up the defense's claim that the park ranger who found Robin Samso's animal-ravaged body in the mountains had been hypnotized by police investigators.
While in prison in 1994, Alcala published a book titled You, the Jury, in which he proclaimed his innocence. In 2010, Rodney Alcala faced his third trial and decided to represent himself. By this time, 31 years had passed since Robin Samso's murder, and advancements in DNA testing had linked Alcala to 4 additional murders. The prosecution team combined these new charges with Robin Samso's case in the 2010 trial. These 4 murders occurred in California in the late 1970s. Jill Barcombe, who was 18 at the time, and Georgia Wickstead, who was 27, were raped, beaten, and strangled in December 1978. Charlotte Lamb, aged 32, and Jill Parenteau, aged 21, were 2 other victims of Rodney Alcala in the 1970s that their cases were included in the new charges. Tali Shapiro, the girl whom Rodney had raped and beaten about 40 years earlier, but she miraculously survived, testified in this court. The prosecution team stated that Alcala was a ruthless killer who played with his victims. He would beat them or strangle them until they lost consciousness, then wait for them to regain consciousness and repeat the process before ultimately killing them. Rodney Alcala, acting as his own attorney, referred to himself as Mr. Alcala while questioning and answering himself. He claimed that at the time of Robin Samso's murder, he was at Knott's Berry Farm and said he did not remember the other murders. However, his efforts were in vain, and the jury convicted him of 5 counts of first-degree murder, sentencing him to death once again. Alcala's murders didn't end there. In 2012, he was convicted of the 1970s murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Jane Hover. In 2016, prosecutors also charged him with the 1977 murder of Christine Ruth Thornton, a 28-year-old woman who was 6 months pregnant. These are just a fraction of Rodney Alcala's crimes. Some officials believe Alcala may have killed up to 130 people, but before full justice could be served, he died of natural causes while awaiting execution in California on July 24, 2021, at the age of 77.